It was one of only 2 Catalina flying boats left in the world licensed to carry passengers. When it plunged into the Pacific Ocean this week, it also sank the dreams of a group of very determined Kiwis. This is a story about chasing dreams and pushing limits. It could so easily have been about lives lost. 60 Minutes director Peter Carey and reporter John Hudson have followed the story of Catalina 4045 Juliet since the beginning, and their camera was there to the very end.
I believe a pan call would be appropriate. We're experiencing detonation on the number one engine.
I opened the window, looked outside at the engine, and hoped I'd wake up from a dream.
Man, I could just kick myself in the ass that we started up. There's a Coast Guard aircraft already called up and said something or other, but I don't know what they've got to offer at this stage. Okay.
It was pretty clear that we were on our way down and that we were going to make a night landing in seas that we couldn't see.
They had planned to land their Catalina flying boat on the Waitemata Harbour in Auckland this week, but instead they're here today in San Francisco on board a cargo ship, their precious aircraft on the bottom of the Pacific.
For the 7 survivors, it was the first time they'd seen land in a week since the container ship Direct Kookaburra en route from Auckland had plucked them from the sea 250 kilometres northeast of Christmas Island.
Morning. How are you?
Good to see you're still alive.
Oh, it's lovely, I tell you.
Among those on board, 60 Minutes director Peter Carey, who's been following the ill-fated voyage of the Catalina for 3 months. Our story began in November in Texas, when the Kiwi aviators took delivery of this World War II flying boat.
We searched the world for an airplane like this, and this is the only one we found.
It may be a rare aircraft, but as we reported earlier this year, this Catalina was in no hurry to leave the United States.
All set. Ready to go? Ready engines.
Just before Christmas, our band of Kiwi aviators took off from Los Angeles, bound for Hawaii, just 4,000 kilometers away. But 90 minutes into the flight, the problems began.
I'm sorry, you're extremely weak and almost unreadable. Catalina 04 Juliet. And,
First the radio.
The radios aren't, our radios are weak.
Then the starboard engine.
I've got a stream of oil down the oil cooler. As what? We have oil, a stream of oil down the oil cooler.
The oil temperature was in the red. They had no alternative but to turn back.
Well, we are still within the easy reach of land. We are turning back for safety reasons.
However, with the very real possibility of losing an engine, even Los Angeles seemed too far away for this heavily laden aircraft. So the order was given to dump the fuel.
I'm afraid the next step will be they may force us into declaring an emergency. Catalina 5404 Juliet, ready to copy, and they're barely readable. Please say it slow.
They were trying to land in one of the world's busiest airports without clear communications and low power on one engine.
It cleared the turn base, and this time it cleared the land. Everything's ready. We've got 100 knots, 95 knots. Get her slowed up. Load up. Load up, 90 knots. Clear, clear, clear. Brakes. Catalina 04 Juliet, we're losing our brakes.
See how close we came from going off at the end of the runway?
The crew successfully nosed her down.
Just a few feet over the hill.
But now added to the other problems, the nose wheel had partially collapsed. This attempt to get a Catalina back to New Zealand was over.
I thought I asked you guys to bring back this Catalina.
Oh, sorry. There was something we should have brought back.
These old warbirds weren't giving up that easily. Back in Auckland, they replotted, still convinced the Catalina they'd just spent $250,000 on wasn't a dud.
It hadn't flown for over a year, and it had really no heavy maintenance on it for over 4 years.
Right.
Which we only found out, of course, the day we left it at Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Catalina 04 Juliet, flighting 250, runway 25 left, clear for takeoff. Catalina 04 Juliet, heading 250.
January the 12th, the second attempt to get to Hawaii. The starboard engine's been repaired, the radio's working, and they're off.
We had tailwinds. We went faster than the Catalina normally does. And I stayed awake all night. It was absolutely beautiful. Calm, everything went smoothly, and we were there in 17.5 hours.
Ross Ewing, the leader of the syndicate, is on board for the first time. And at the controls, Kirk Broder, a commercial pilot who flew this aircraft for its previous owner.
Center, Catalina, November 5404 Juliet. Good. Very good. Hold her up.
They'd made Hawaii, one of the longest legs now behind them. It seemed as if all the bugs that plagued their first trip were gone.
Yesterday's leg was by far the hardest as far as safety reasons go, because there's nothing between the states and here. Whereas today's flight, there are many more islands available. Should we go down, heaven forbid, at any point we can stop en route. Granted, there won't be any facilities there to help us, but at least it's someplace we can get up on dry land.
But the weight of the fuel on the leg to Tahiti would be critical. And there was some debate about taking the trip in 2 legs, stopping first at Christmas Island.
There was some discussion as to whether or not we would make Tahiti on the fuel that we had the capacity to carry. But in fact, that very much depended on the weather. I mean, if we had tailwinds, then it would be fine. Or if we had crosswinds, it would be fine. If we had a headwind, it would be a different story.
Everyone straight off this, 500 feet and turn on to 160.
This was the last long leg, and then it was going to be, we were not relaxed, but it was going to be a bit of a breeze from here on in. And so it was the last long, sort of demanding leg, and I was going to be glad when it was over.
And for the first 5 hours, everything went okay.
Which engine is giving us the problem? Left engine. The left engine.
The port engine had started backfiring. The timing was out, and it was losing power.
Darn, I wish we had gone up. At 220 miles, Christmas. Dial it up, Kirk. Yeah, I think we better. Yeah, I think we should go to Christmas if you want my view.
We turned towards Christmas Island, which was the nearest landfall for thousands of miles, and it was pitch black outside. And we just headed there and slowly losing height, really, trying to think of ways of overcoming this problem, but it was pretty clear that we were on our way down.
Okay, 3 people, we are losing an engine. Okay, have you declared a mayday?
I knew we were going to hit the water at any moment. Or it could be any moment, it could be a long wait. Everyone was advised to prepare for the ditching.
The essential thing was that we were, at that stage in our flight, just that little bit too heavy to fly on one engine. Normally she can fly on one engine, but because we were doing a ferry flight, because we had full tanks of fuel, and on the Catalina you can't jettison the fuel like you can in a 747, because we had all that weight on board, she couldn't fly on one engine. And we were on our way down.
So it wasn't a nice smooth water surface where you can ease it in. We are hitting small walls of water everywhere.
I'll never forget that first thump when we hit. It was a great crunch, and then it got quiet again, and I remembered somewhere that it's the second one that'll get you if you're unprepared for it. So I told everybody to brace themselves and to hang on.
I put the camera away because it was too dangerous to have a camera in the cabin. I mean, it was more likely, there was a very strong likelihood that we would end up upside down. When you can't see the water, you can't see what you're landing on. and you're working completely on instruments. So when you hit the water, you literally fly into the water, and that's what we did. We flew into the water.
Miraculously, the Catalina was still upright. No one had been injured. But with the force of the impact, the old warbird had sprung a leak.
So we got busy and started the pumps going, the bilge pumps, and they soon clogged up, unfortunately, with dirt. By then sunlight had appeared, the sun had come up, daylight had arrived, and we reluctantly had to abandon the aeroplane.
Even though the Catalina was still floating, a sudden wave could easily swamp her.
I could not risk any loss of life. We had to get people in the raft and away from the aircraft. It was pretty hard. And that was the, there was no delay that we were going to lose her. We had to abandon ship while she was sitting there. And I've never lost an aircraft before. And I don't think it's something you get used to either.
Oh, that was about 1,000 miles from Honolulu, where our Rescue Coordination Center picked up the call.
When the Mayday went out, it was heard 5,000 kilometers away in Oakland, California, and within minutes, the U.S. Coast Guard had begun the rescue.
Our aircraft was good for locating them and did locate them quite rapidly.
But the Coast Guard also used its worldwide rescue system, AMVA, to locate the closest ship, the direct Kookaburra, just 12 hours away. How did you feel when that C-130 came up?
It's like a big mother goose. Yeah, it was great. The Americans are great. Yeah, it was lovely to see her. It was really lovely to see her. One day in 11, a ship happens to be passing, and it's that ship, and it's that day. She just came right alongside the life raft. I got pushed up the ladder and sprang up the ladder, the last of the adrenaline, I think, and then just watched as we all came aboard, and the hospitality was extraordinary, and all these wonderful Filipino smiling faces standing at the top of the ladder. We were all exhausted, and you know, it might not look like it on video. I mean, it looks like a beautiful day. It looks like we were out there having a Sunday picnic sometimes when I look at those pictures. But when you were there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and you're looking out, and you're just so lucky.
Lucky to be alive and well in San Francisco today.
All this luck builds up, and yet the overriding feeling was the aircraft didn't make it to New Zealand. We had to leave her behind. And she's now at 4,609 metres under the sea.
We're rescued, we're alive, which is really good, but we've lost this airplane, and that's really sad. It was a great airplane. It was the best one that we could find and what we were looking for, and to see it go beneath the waves was really quite sad, to say the least.
She was my baby, and she's the pinnacle of my my flying. It was difficult seeing her go.
I don't think it's the end of a dream. I would really love to see a Catalina flying boat in New Zealand. That's my dream, really. And whether I fulfill it or someone else, I don't really mind.
The group of Kiwis involved in that story plan to continue with their quest to bring an old flying boat home. They've set up a fund to help finance the purchase of another plane, and people wishing to help can do so by sending contributions to Post Office Box 527 Papakuta in Auckland. With the loss of 4045 Juliet, there's now only one Catalina left in the world licensed to carry passengers. It's based in Africa, and tentative inquiries about its availability are already being made. That address again, if you want to help, Box 527 Papakuta in Auckland.